Hello, Tarnished, and welcome back to another Souls-like video. And today, we're diving into one of my favorite debates in gaming. Is Hollow Knight actually a Souls-like game? Now, on paper, it's a Metroidvania, but if you've played it, if you've really felt it, you know this game bleeds Souls-like DNA, and I've got a personal connection here. Hollow Knight was the first game I ever streamed, the very first, and honestly, that experience may be the reason I'm addicted to Souls-like games today. So this isn't just theory crafting, it's kind of personal. Let's start with genre. Most people call Hollow Knight a Metroidvania. You explore a massive interconnected world, unlock new abilities, and backtrack to uncover secrets. That's classic Metroidvania DNA. But then you die, and suddenly the game feels a little bit different. You don't just respawn, you leave behind your money, your progress, your soul. You have to fight your shade to recover it, and just like that, you're thrown straight into a Dark Souls style loop. That's where the arguments start. Souls-like purists say, hold on, it's not stamina based, it doesn't have bonfire style checkpoints, and the combat is way faster than Souls. It's not a Souls-like, and technically, they're a little bit right. Hollow Knight doesn't tick every single box. But here's where things get messy. Hollow Knight feels like a Souls-like game, even if it's not one by definition. The atmosphere, hollowness, is drenched in despair, decay, and silence. You don't get a cheerful soundtrack, you get haunting piano, echoes of loneliness, and that same oppressive weight Dark Souls is absolutely famous for. The storytelling, NPCs don't dump lore on you, they whisper fragments, riddles, and half-truths. You connect the dots, that's Souls-like storytelling 101. The punishment, when you die, you don't just lose progress, you lose your geo, your stability, your confidence. Death hurts, and recovering your shade can sometimes be harder than the boss that killed you. Sound a little bit familiar? Yeah, that's Souls-like design at its core. The bosses, they're not just enemies, they're walls. Some are tests of patience, some demand total mastery of movement, and some, like the Radiants, just break your spirit before you finally overcome them. That's Souls in bug form. So if Hollow Knight has so much Souls-like DNA, why do people still argue it's not a Souls-like game? Because in strict genre terms, it isn't. Souls-like are defined by stamina management, weighty melee combat, parry/roll invincibility frames, bonfire-style checkpoints that double as hubs for leveling, warping, and progression. Hollow Knight doesn't use stamina. It doesn't focus on weighty weapon duels. It's a platformer first, a brawler second, and while benches are checkpoints, they don't handle the progression system the same way that bonfires do. So technically, yeah, Hollow Knight sits outside the Souls-like box. It's Souls-inspired, but not technically Souls-like. But let's zoom in on one of the most common arguments, the benches. Are they Hollow Knight's versions of bonfires? Honestly, yes. Resting at a bench heals you, sets your respawn point, and respawns enemies across the map. That's nearly identical to what bonfires do in Dark Souls. And just like bonfires, benches are placed in key locations right before bosses or buried deep in hostile territories, daring you to push just a little bit further to reach safety. But here's the catch. Benches stop short of being true bonfires. They don't let you level up, they don't act as fast travel nodes on their own, they're closer in spirit to the Metroidvania style safe rooms, but with Souls-like teeth thanks to the enemy's respawn system. So benches sit in this kind of hybrid space. They're not fully bonfires, not fully save rooms. They're a perfect example of how Team Cherry blended Metroidvania and Souls design philosophies in one seamless mechanic. But here's where the debate gets really interesting. Genres aren't just about mechanics, they're about philosophy. And Hollow Knight shares the same design philosophy that makes Souls-like so powerful. The world itself is the main character. Hollowness tells its story through ruins, corpses, and silence, just like Lord Drain or Lothric. And the sense of despair, every area feels like the aftermath of tragedy. Every NPC feels like they're just barely holding on. That existential sadness is pure Souls. The triumph of perseverance, Souls-like, and Hollow Knight both make you earn your victories. There's no hand-holding, no shortcuts. When you finally defeat a boss or map a new area, the joy is real because the struggle was real. That's why Hollow Knight feels so close to Souls, even if the combat is different. The emotional journey through it all is the same. And like I said earlier, Hollow Knight was the first game I ever streamed. At first, I thought what I loved about it was the platforming, the tight controls, the precise jumps, the flow of movement. So naturally, I tried Celeste next. And don't get me wrong, Celeste is brilliant. It's one of the best platformers ever made, but it didn't scratch the same itch Hollow Knight did. I realized that platforming wasn't what had me hooked in the first place. That realization finally hit me when I played Elden Ring. Suddenly, everything clicked. What I loved wasn't just the movement, it was the design philosophy. The way these games challenge you, punish you, make you claw through despair, and then reward you with triumph. That's what had grabbed me in Hollow Knight, and it's why Souls-likes completely hooked me afterwards. So for me, Hollow Knight wasn't just another game, it was the gateway that revealed what kind of gamer I really was. So is Hollow Knight a Souls-like? Strictly speaking, if you're a purist, no. Spiritually, absolutely. It's the closest thing to a Souls-like without actually being one. And for me, it's more than just a genre debate. It's personal. Hollow Knight was the game that planted the seed. Celeste made me think it was the platforming I loved, but it wasn't until Elden Ring that I realized the truth, and I wasn't just hooked on tight controls or movement, I was hooked on the philosophy of Souls-like design itself. The struggle, the despair, the triumph. And that's why Hollow Knight will always feels like a Souls-like to me. Not because it checks the right boxes, but because it led me down the path to discover the kind of games I love the most. But what do you think? Should Hollow Knight be considered a Souls-like, or is it truly just a Metroidvania with some borrowed mechanics? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to see how divided people really are on this one. I'm limerivt. If you love Souls-like games, Hollow Knight, or just watching a dragon get wrecked by bosses on stream, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and if you haven't already, please head on over to my Twitch so you can watch me play Souls-like games on the daily. See you in Farlom when Silksong finally comes out. Goodbye, guys. Bye, 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 bye.